Andy's, I should call a guy, face came up.
I can hear you now again. I don't know why it dropped last time, but
We're in the process of calling the roll, and your name came up next on the roll call. Are you present, Andy?
I'm now present. Thank you. I apologize for the delay.
No problem. And of course, I have to comment about 11. And with that, proceeding to our agenda for this evening, as always, our first agenda item is public input. We seem to have no members of the public here in the meeting room, and we seem to have no attendees in the room. But unless one of us has something to contribute that could be classified as public input rather than any of our other agenda items, we will proceed. Next agenda item is discussion of bylaw article revision remaining to be completed. We are somewhere close to being done. Quite there yet, which is yet, we're getting closer. So the first one on my list to discuss is Article 30, which we had seen after the previous meeting. Yeah, so just kind of looking through real quick the usual some general programs, RG5, some recommendations to move some definition language to avoid the appearance that wireless or battery powered systems might be into the scope of the there are some transition provisions in section 5 that will remove the flag going forward. Some language across sections added that potential to enforce the bylaw through disposition as far as into the article in section 6. So yeah, it was just language related to admitted civil proceedings that section 6. Yes, so as far as I didn't see anything that I would recommend changing here. Or I did include the disposition, we specify specific things, mainly $100 for intentional causing defaults and $25 per day. So that's satisfied the specific things to requirements we manage. Administrator it satisfies the particular reason.
The only question I have in this is the town treasurer know we're putting them in the seat to collect these things? Or track them? Yeah, I just kind of asked because we talked about the whole thing of you have to have the form approved by the Superior Court and everything. What logging mechanism do we have to make sure that the stuff gets collected?
You think section 21D pretty well. That is a change from the fees that previously talked by the administrator, which was the chief of police. Changing that to I assume the use of that word, but instead of eventually end up in section 11, you changed the administrator to town treasurer. That's consistent with section 8B, which is paid to treasurer.
They're paid to. So remember when you found that they combined the treasurer and the collector? Did they call it just one thing after that? Or treasurer, collector? So should we? Use that title?
Maybe.
Because the treasurer accepts the money in the proverbial old way of doing it.
Yes.
And the collector would collect.
In chapter 20, chapter 4, section 20B, which is not necessarily here. The money is sent to the court.
It winds up in the treasurer.
Okay. I don't know if it matters here.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because one of the things I did when I was, or kind of thought about while doing that Article 4 thing is the treasurer is the one that starts tax title proceeding.
Yes,
It's weird.
the collector is the collector of taxes.
Right. So, we should have called it something different.
Yeah.
Just so that you just call it, because that's what, we don't have a town treasurer, so to speak, we have a treasurer collector.
Yes. Well, I would be inclined to leave it as is, but perhaps ask town council in their review of all of these.
Put it on your list.
We may get some clarification. That may end up being one of these items where if we have a few things that we are going to just say, rather than write them into every one. We talk about things like references. How do you refer to a maximum?
Yeah.
So we're likely to end up with one warrant article for town meeting that says conflict with whoever is authorized to go through the bylaws from beginning to end and these sort of changes.
Yeah.
So that, are we good to go? The only other question I had, right, since the application. So the section I added specifically called out that being used for kind of makes sense in the spirit of community.
this bylaw also has the slight twinge of the false alarm charges, which feel like penalties, although we don't call them penalties.
Right, the way that, as I see it, the way this bylaw is written, the fees to false alarms are not the fees. They're fees, they're not penalties, they're not things that we today, without community doing, have to go to that court to. Sure. I think that the terminology there is probably significant. Fees versus penalties. It seems
Good spot to start with anyways. The preposition of somebody wishes to act. The same thing and say can't do.
we're good with all of that. We can say that. Good to go with this one. So the next one on my list is Article 1. There's two changes to this version. One is kind of rewrote section 6 on penalties and enforcement. I think it reads a little bit more straightforwardly. It includes criminal disposition. I also wrote it specifically to authorize the use of non-criminal disposition for regulations generally. But technically, the language of 6B today authorizes criminal only for the Board of Health regulations. There are two other Board of Health regulations. So in both 21B, technically it's not illegal. The law has been authorized. My update to section 6 basically be a little bit more general. And the other change I did in Article 1 was put a new section 10 in there about posting the notices, which is it's there. I just put much the same definition that's already in the charter. When we say local newspaper, it means newspaper general circulation plus website. And there's a list of yellow highlight at the end of it. We still have a question of where do we say what about the posting in meeting rooms? Or now we say post offices and library.
So that's where I got it from. I don't scan it and send it around. In essence, it's they look to have them posted at least in every precinct. Under whatever rules and regulations India has or sees. It may be kind of a nebulous thing that has always gone, like going back 6 million years on the signposting from the inn. Really was that was the place where you posted it. So it's, the concept of putting them out in every precinct.
And so for right now, the details of that are yet to be, we have yet to nail down how we want to do it.
Other than to take what the custom seems to be, which is they shall be posted in any place, in a public place in every precinct.
We'll probably, at least, we're waiting on police committee for their bylaw.
I was wondering about that, but Greg, we're not even going to be meeting until September now.
You'd expected that to be addressed.
Yeah, I remember Greg saying he talked to you sometime by the end of June. Anyway, that's still in limbo. It's so there's really two parts of the finance committee bylaw. Posting notices. May want to revise, or I think I think there may have been in the article too, in the meeting. I think maybe there's some meaning just sort of in compliance with town custom and sleeping that. Anyway, that needs to be nailed down, whether we end up doing something in Article 1 about it or not is a question. We need to nail down the composition of the committee that makes the appointments to things. Now that we got the charter change approved by the voters, charter change.
Yeah, so now we gotta change this, and we gotta do that one first. And we're gonna do that.
Sooner or later, we're going to need that.
Yeah, we had a full current committee, bylaw committee appointment group attend our last meeting.
Yes.
So I, kind of,
For Article 1, if we're comfortable with the way we've rewritten section 6 and the definition of that, I'll leave that, delete that when I see it around.
yeah, I don't,
I don't know whether we'll end up putting warrant posting. I'm not sure we will.
Shoot back to two again, and it requires the posting of the warrant in each of the precincts, and then also notice of the meeting needs to be posted.
Yeah.
To me, I wonder the copies of the warrant in each precinct is irrelevant. I don't think anybody's actually relying on those copies to inform themselves as to what's going to be voted on at town meeting. So I mean, to me, if we needed to test the copy somewhere, put it on the municipal center bulletin board, post it to the website, and we probably need a specific website reference there instead of using what the newspaper does. That's all the newspaper. But yeah, I would just maybe just tweak it.
well, in deference to people that don't have computers, for the astronomical cost to post it in
Well, but it's not even useful, right? Is we say it needs to be posted in a place in each precinct, but we don't say what those places are. So you're not even telling anybody where it is. Whereas if we change it to say, all right, we're gonna put one copy in the municipal center, telling you where it is, which is already included.
Yeah, we definitely want to do this. One of the things that we've done is image copies.
at one time we mailed them.
Yeah.
Everybody got them.
We need stacks of printed copies in the clerk's office,
At the
library. Maybe the clerk's office. But I don't know how much we need to say in the bylaw.
Yeah, because what
I'd say
happens
more
is
than we have to. In the
really, and it's kind of funny, you could argue, well, you didn't post it as required, but what's the penalty? We can't have a town meeting. No, maybe you could fine $50. Because really, so what? I didn't post the meeting, it was 24 hours ahead of time. There's nothing that says I can't have the meeting. Or 48 hours ahead of time. But it depends on what you do at the meeting, and somebody could challenge it, say you didn't post it.
If you didn't post the meeting, conceivably, the AG could say you violated the open meeting law. The actions you took at that meeting were invalid. So there's some teeth there, but it's like to say,
And so any of this, so other stuff of a clerical nature, what would happen? No.
yeah, there's a lot of the bylaws are not procedures. This is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, what happens? So I thought about that in a number of cases. I mean, if you apply a $50 penalty, who are you going to sue? Is the town,
It's gonna be the town, Frank.
is the town gonna sue itself for violating?
Yeah.
the bylaw?
Yeah, the other thing about saying you must put it in the North Grafton post office is, oh, well, what happens if they close the post office and, you know, instead of having three, there's one in the center of town? Now we gotta turn around and change the bylaw again. So if you leave it, if you want to put one in each precinct, which I believe is what the documents say that Candy, instead of sending it to me, printed them out and gave them to me, so I got them in my stack of papers at home. So I'll scan that and send it along for whatever good it is, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, back to the case in the we hear the concept means but those updates have to go. The next one, Article 12, is basically updates as we discussed at this meeting. To add in Article 12, I added non-pending disposition, so the places, basically the places that we discussed at the last meeting.
How come we took the constables out of the selectmen?
That's, I think that's spelled out in the chart.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe it is.
If the charter says it. the
Yeah,
bylaw
it's my law doesn't have to say it, yeah.
So
That's,
I took an awful lot of stuff out of the appointments in
Yeah.
Article 1, Section 9, because a lot of those appointments, they're either obsolete or they're spelled out in other places, either in the charter or in Section.
So the first one, in section 8C. Didn't know why this might get to what we talked about last time. Lower penalties being easier to collect through getting this position, but I guess I wasn't going in whatever channels to read this and didn't feel like there was really any reason to lower the penalty just because we're getting closer to this position. It's working on that's pursuing the court, it's working on issues in the ticket court. And then the only other thought was that having any flat fee of any amount would eliminate the need to track which offense for the person.
Yes. And to ask the appropriate people to look at this and see, tell us whether they agree with who we've identified, whether they agree with what we're proposing. And that's a consideration for coming to June.
I think 2 or 3 places where the current penalty is a not to exceed, and so we specify the bulk of the cases where we specify $50 in language. I wonder if it wouldn't be worth it just to, while we're at it, kind of like in bylaws, the not to exceed, so just remove that not to exceed language and just set the penalties in those cases at $50. Then I don't think we have to repeat it in the meeting, which we already have discussed.
Yeah, it's an interesting consideration. I think the logic behind putting the seed in there, there was some discussion in the court case. So we're going to the judge hearing the case to decide.
I would think the judge isn't really gonna care. They're gonna do whatever they wanna do, you know, generally.
I like it. It's probably a good question.
Are you thinking of re-lettering the little letters and the appointments? It's instead of leaving you know, like we kind of talked about, you know.
Yeah, I think that should go without saying.
Yeah, okay, just a question. Okay, they sent a note out to Candy about the fees and the numbers that go with the fees again, asked her about that and said, the same thing's gonna happen here. We're gonna have a start off with a D Then have it all. How come these people around?
Yeah. Yeah, since we're gonna be asking for feedback. And not assuming that the numbers we have in here now are. Understand the numbers that we're in. Maybe people who are close to the situations can suggest appropriate numbers. So what we have here now is good news to put out there.
Article 12 or 1?
No. Okay. Article 12.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, Brian got you.
We removed section 18. Because it has no value. And I added the non-criminal disposition. So. I want to be sure that the people we say we think should be responsible are the right people, anybody, or and the penalties are being appropriate by the people. Value of maintaining that speed to the language. And that's the best. You see that in
Once you get feedback, yeah, you actually will. And you know that's true, but you need to exceed the.
So we'll take what we've got tonight for Article 40, Article 1, and Article 12.
Did you get 2 cents from the handicap folks about the parking?
I'm still waiting to hear from them. I'm gonna have to.
I saw that it was still in there, so I was kind of wondering whether.
They haven't gotten back to me on that yet. So moving on then, other articles that are still not done. Article 19, betterment / road repair / road acceptance private ways. Evan says he's working on it. He says he's got a pretty good idea of what he wants to do. So we're still waiting on that. We've got Article 20, personal bylaw. Evan says that Labor Council is expected to be finished up with that by the end of June. And next one on my list is, are there any updates that are listed on the action item list that was not yet? Particularly many of the articles.
Yeah, I can put together, I know there are. The list, the list, I left it filtered in those items. Back to address some of those. You should at least be that situation. I can go through some of the update. Should be able to pick off.
Yeah. So one of the things we make sure that we've got everything in that list. And let's see. As noted in Article 3, we're waiting for FinCom input. FinCom representative to this committee hopefully be able to contribute something. But he's in West Virginia. He said he wants to do this and the next one. And I may not get anything more in August. We've got,
skipping you. Did you say August is?
So generally, there's no reason for us to meet until September. Yeah. We'll start kind of prepping up. Depends on what's foreseen for the October meeting. Kind of originally, when we came up to the 2 meeting concept in the spring, all of this financial stuff in the spring, and typical town meeting stuff in the spring, and in the fall we would do what was zoning and bylaw changes and stuff like that. And stages.
yeah, so that's hanging at the moment. Hopefully we'll get that. Those thinking articles. Article 5, Andy. The select board article, I just looked at that again today, and the only thing I see in there that is likely to need changing is the last section in the blue book. And that last section basically spells out some duties of the clerk of the select board. And since we don't have that bound book anymore, do we have an equivalent to the bound book that the select board clerk is involved in maintaining? Or does what the bylaw says within that bound book, is that all handled by staff now? In which case, are there any select board clerk duties that need to be mentioned in the bylaw? Any thoughts on that, Andy?
It's been on my list to get on an upcoming select board agenda to discuss, and I've routinely put it off as we've got plenty of time on this and the other guys are cranking. So I will put some genuine effort into getting that on one of our upcoming agendas and having that discussion.
Yeah, we're close to the point where we really don't have time anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
especially hearing, hey, we might be able to cancel August meetings. I was like, oh man, you just all right, yep, I really got to buckle down on that. So, and I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, I will work with Matt to get that on an agenda very soon.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
That's probably been hanging around for 2 million years,
Yeah.
where the clerk of the board sat there and recorded the minutes. Or took notes and transcribed them into the book once they felt comfortable.
Yeah, and I don't know how old that language is, but I suspect it's been there since at
Long
least
time.
before we ever had a town administrator and a lot of staff. The select board was 3 people and there was an executive secretary, and that was
Yep.
about it.
Yeah, and that's probably the one that was taking care of all the minutes anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Steve probably wasn't even the clerk back then.
no,
So, yeah, that, other than modernizing that language, and ultimately the question is there any point to the bylaw specifying the duties of the select board clerk? There may not be one.
it probably isn't really, other than to sign the minutes if they're recorded and stamped or anything, it's probably largely a titular job.
Yeah, so for now, we'll leave that in Andy's capable hands, and he will get the select board to grapple with that. And whatever they come up with, it's not likely to be a major change to the bylaws, but maybe it will be as simple as deleting that one section. We'll see. So,
Well, if you ask Ray, the clerk does nothing, so he may very well vote to just remove that section.
yeah, if there's no need for the bylaw to spell out any duties of the clerk, yeah, delete it.
So I might point out that the eminent Mr. Mead voted as a member of the Board of Fire Engineers to get rid of the company clerks when we used to get $10 extra a year in salary. And then when they found out how much work we did, they regretted it.
So you think this is just a general clerk bias, or is that what we're getting at?
I might be.
Okay. So moving along then, on my list, we've got Article 4, which Skip has.
Finally got around to, I'm still even, I wonder as I go through it in kind of, I have some proverbial questions for anybody that are in yellow,
Yes.
but I think that what I kind of threw in there without the signing and in custody and approval of contracts need some clarification. You know, if I go down to Koopman's and buy something, that's a contract. You know, we're gonna pay. So when they talk about contracts here, what actually does it mean that only the selectmen and school committee can sign contracts? What kind of contracts?
So I tried doing some research there.
Not to press you to answer it all today.
Yeah, no, that section specifically calls out, contracts. And I'm looking for the language now, basically exercising the executive authority of the town. Right, and so that, I was able to find that that's basically a cut and paste out of, Mass General Laws, is it chapter 40, section 4? And it's summarized a bit, but it's largely, getting to the same point. So to me, that would be, if we were entering into a PNS or some sort of. Yeah, I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that's getting at purchasing contracts. To me, that was more.
Right,
So I would kind of take purchasing out of that equation. Maybe it might be everything else, but,
yeah, so that's why I try expanding, shrinking, trying to somehow quantify that. And I found that a bunch of this stuff is cut and paste. Where, well, frankly, you could wipe that out, we could wipe this out because it's in the law, so,
Yeah.
why bother copying and pasting and saying that you can do what the legislature says you can do? Or was there something else that they had in mind here? So like we had a fence put in at Roney Park, well, $2,200 and we had the fence installed. That was kind of like an installation contract.
Yeah, that may get into chapter 30 procurement procedures. And it may be that it would be worthwhile consulting with town council on some. Is this language in the bylaw appropriate?
Yeah, well, what's it really trying to control
Yeah.
or talk about?
and I slightly misspoke, it's not the executive authority, it's the exercise of the town's corporate powers.
Right,
And so to me, those sorts of purchase contracts or kind of service contracts. I don't necessarily see those as corporate powers, something,
are they talking about real estate transactions? I don't think that the school committee can do real estate.
yeah.
But it's talking about the school committee and the select board in the same thing.
So it's clearly not just real estate, but it's a question, what is the scope of this contract language that we've got here in section 6?
Yeah, and that would be. I mean, chapter 30B of general laws has like 49 sections. Yeah, okay, so that's okay, leave that in, says chapter 39. That's easy enough to understand what you're getting at. But what section 6 is getting at, and it kind of goes, it's 6 and 8 kind of joined together. Whenever a written contract is required by these bylaws, well, there's nothing in the bylaws anywhere that says a written contract is required.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea what contracts actually flow through that process? So, do purchase and service contracts, go to the town council for review or, if it's not like some sort of standard template.
Well, and so that's what I wonder, in whether, we kind of go through this with Evan and saying, Evan, we're looking at these things and saying, what exactly, taking apart the fact that we've had an awful lot of experience and time doing stuff here. And it kind of cuts through many different lines of, so in the past, when we did X, where would that fall within the scope of this? It's somehow, if we're trying to keep people from doing something, maybe we've got to be a little clearer about what it is. Because I don't know. That's why I went, again, getting like the next one, that's section 9 about getting rid of excess property. Well, what if somebody wants to get rid of something for $50? You have to go, right now you would have to go to the select board.
Well, and what went through my mind with that example was, so theoretically, I don't need any approval to just dispose of it.
Yeah, you
I
can
only
throw it
need
away.
approval if I'm selling it. So it's like, so
Right.
if the option is to get select board approval to sell it for $50 or to just throw it away, I'm just gonna throw it away.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's like, so should we allow, put something in place that says, okay, for anything less than $1,000 that you can sell, go ahead and sell it. But this is what you gotta do to sell it. So like I did a cleanup at Nelson Park. I filled up the back of the truck with a bunch of scrap metal. We had motors down there. There was rakes probably from the 50s that they used to pull around on tractors when that was an American Legion baseball field that had pieces of iron and stuff stuck into them. And I went to Schnitzer's. I think I got $12.63 instead of taking it all and putting it in the dumpster. And came down and put it in the thing downstairs. Technically speaking, I had to go to the selectmen for that.
Issue you a $50 fine for not following the
Have a
bylaws.
nice day. But it's so, just thinking of that.
Skip, I mean, I'm not in the room, but I can still hear you.
Yeah, that's, what, Andy? You had to go to get a papal dispensation to get rid of it. And stuff would sit around and rot before people finally went through the process of getting it. And by the time they got rid of it, well, yeah, you got $50 for it, great.
Right, so we got some, I would seek Evan's opinion and,
Are you gonna put that in your contact with Evan folder?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, going back up to the top of this, the yellow highlight. City locations,
What, is that, I don't know what that.
I would just
You
strike
know,
it and not think twice.
I think clearly.
All right, so we'll change that to a red.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's see,
The only other thought I had on that sentence is in the next sentence, we talk about GASB standards, and I see why, and I know we talked about it before. To me, if we're gonna add anything referencing those standards, I think I would just tack it on to this list, because in the second sentence, it's really just talking about the location of where things are kept. And I think if we bring in those standards, we probably want to reference them, not only for where they're kept, but also what needs to be kept. So just broadly referencing records retention.
All right.
Set forth by and I'd probably spell out, because I don't think we've defined GASB anywhere, so the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That way, it would cover both what is kept and to the extent there's any requirements in those standards for where those things need to be kept, you know, it kind of lumps it all into one.
All right, I shall go back and see if I can find a note amongst the 150 of them that I have from Mary.
Yeah, and
To
I can,
see whether she put some more stuff in there.
yeah, and I can send you kind of my thought on, you know, what we could throw in that previous sentence.
Okay. Yeah, so for now, I'll just change the city locations to the big red highlight.
Yes. Yes. I don't know. I can't even imagine what that was intended to do.
Again, it's gotta be copy and pasted from someplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody else.
But anyway, so that, Yasby will work on that. Down in section 3C, you're adding the town council's report. It kind of duplicates the language in the town council bylaw article.
Yeah, I had the same note, and I don't have a strong preference where it sits, but to me, it probably only needs to be one place. So if we do include all this detail here, we could probably eliminate section 6 of article 10.
Okay,
The
so
town council bylaw.
I just look solely at this one. But if we were to copy or cut this out of here and stick it in there, well,
I mean,
if you, then I would say take this whole section C out of here and put it in the town council one.
what's useful about mentioning it here is that this is an itemized list of everything that's supposed to go in the annual report.
So we could simplify this to the report of town council. And then reference detail.
Right, reference the town council bylaw article.
Sure.
As to the details of what.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll change that a little bit. Obviously, some red is gonna appear there for the whole sentence that is there now.
Yeah.
Which is the non-green part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll look at 10.
Yep, cross-reference, yeah, I think it's probably good to have the town council bylaw article item and spell out what the town council's report should be, but useful to reference it here because this is a more complete list of what has to go into the town report.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sent along the 79 list of stuff.
I will send to everybody here the list I sent to Evan for his and Ginny's review, which is from some more recent town reports. So it's not going to be.
It's-
So the one you sent was Adele's report,
Yeah,
and I've got one that I think I copied like from 3 relatively recent town reports,
yeah,
including at least one that Ginny wrote. So Ginny once at one time did do this.
yeah.
And she's not been doing it lately, but Evan thinks it's a good idea to have that in there, so.
Yeah,
Evan wants to leave the town council bylaw article to include the.
Okay.
report.
okay.
But I'll send
Yeah,
you,
it's-
I'll send
it's
you a
just-
copy of
It's
what I.
strictly public record stuff,
Yeah.
not looking for anything else.
Yep. And then the item D, the betterments. Yeah, I think I don't know how often we do it. We still do betterments. We do betterments for sewer. We do betterments for roads, or we can do betterments. I don't
Yeah,
know how often we do it, but it's still a thing.
right, where would you put them? Yeah, I couldn't find them existing anywhere. Like in the town report, a listing of the betterments.
Right, well, this says. the town
It should
report
be there.
Should include
Yeah.
that. Just because.
You don't see them.
Yeah, but who are we gonna penalize for not doing this?
Right,
Now, and I know a number of years ago. Back when I was working with the sewer department on their billing system, I know they had some ongoing betterments that they were assessing.
right, so, and they did all the betterments for the sewer construction, and that's what I was kind of thinking is, was this a big thing when they were doing the sewers? And somebody wanted them all out there.
Yeah, and even today, if we were to
Extend.
extend a sewer line somewhere.
Yeah.
At least in principle, we would be, sometimes some of this more recent sewer line extensions have been done.
Just
To
by the
reach a
town.
subdivision, and maybe have been done entirely at the expense of the developer. But in a case where a sewer line extension is done and not fully paid for by the developer, it would be assessed to the properties that it passes.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing about water lines, except the town
It
is
doesn't do that. Yeah, yeah,
But the water district likely, yeah, it certainly has the power to do that.
yeah.
But, and I do not know, there was an extensive water line project that brought water up to the High Fields or High Point subdivision. It ran, yeah, down half of Adams Road from Old Westboro Road and, you know, and it connected somewhere down in Westboro Road, if I remember right. I don't know whether that was partly assessed as betterment to the property owners. It would have been done by the water district, so that the town never got involved. in it.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I mean, it's things like that, the betterments, you know, still exist.
Any reference to the water district is probably giving END PTSD.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about water district.
Well, what's going on with them?
Yeah, so you know, it's probably fair to keep this list, you know,
Yeah.
this in there, list of betterments. Even
Okay.
though, you know, whether there are any betterments lately, and there may not be any currently in existence, but it's still possible. And let's see, contracts.
Should I, so. Then I will put in during the municipal year, comma. By the assessing.
I think it's probably good just the way it is.
Yeah. So at least that way you say, okay, you know who's gonna do it. So like if the sewer department was the assessing authority. Or if the town was the assessing
Yeah, I mean,
authority,
it's
they were
all- it's all the
responsible
town.
for doing it.
Yeah, it's.
I-
As far as the betterments that I'm aware of that the town would be in a position to do are sewers and roads. There may be others that I just don't know off the top of my head, but I don't know whether the bylaw needs to say anything more
Okay.
than list of betterments as it's wording as it exists. You know, it's up to the appropriate people in the town organization to just figure out, well, who has betterments that need to be included.
Yep, okay. And then we strike out the clerk's hours, the notification of the clerk.
Just a, thought there, I think in areas where we've been pulling out entire sections, I think we've been leaving, the header. So the notification of town clerk of office hours,
Yeah, remove,
leave that and just put,
with the notation removed by town meeting.
yeah, repealed or something like in the section itself.
Yep.
Repealed or deleted it.
Yeah,
For now, at least, I mean, when we get to nailing everything down to town meeting action, we may review that and think differently, but for now, yeah, leave the section numbering in there, but just say the section's been repealed
Yeah.
or deleted.
Remove the red.
And he's got his hand up here. Andy,
Chair, Mr. Chair. The Affordable Housing Trust could use my help getting a quorum for their meeting that's about to kick off. Would there be any objections to me leaving this meeting?
we will still have a forum. Whenever.
I don't know. I don't know if the microphone switched, but halfway through, I only heard about half of that. You started very clear and then. Okay, I got the thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will see you in a couple weeks.
I'm trying to unread the part that I had to, the notification of town clerk office hours. I got the strike through out, but I can't get the highlight off.
On my version of Microsoft Word here, I have to. There may be more than one. Oh, there's under the list of styles, you might find a clear formatting thing
So
somewhere.
when I hit clear formatting. Well, you know what that does? All right, that took the red out.
Yeah,
It moved it over, okay, so I can move it back to the middle of the page. Skippy can do that, and then he can fold it back to what it used to be. That come in. There. There. Okay, all set, kids, thank you.
on that, we've already talked about the contracts and the sale of property
Right, so we're gonna find out about those.
and
Then the meetings was what Greg had talked about.
yeah,
I believe, and I think I have taken at least the spirit of what he meant out of his email that he sent along. I think that's what he was trying to say. When he was asking me if I was gonna be able to get it in there, okay?
Yeah, I think the only tweak we had talked about, and I forget what language we landed on, but in the second sentence of section 11, the new section 11,
Yeah,
where we say the body shall be sworn in, I think we had either landed on either members or members of the body, shall be sworn in.
the members of the body shall be sworn in.
Sure.
the members of the body shall be sworn in. And I suppose you could say the body shall meet, organize, and elect officers. Yeah, we wanted to say that the members need to be sworn in, but everything else is what the body does, as a body. So the members of the body shall be sworn in, the body shall meet, organize, and elect officers within 30 days. Or members of the body shall be sworn in, and the body shall meet, organize, and elect officers all within 30 days.
Now, let me ask you this question. With that revised second sentence, should I cut that off and put it at the end of the paragraph? Because you're saying that everybody shall be appointed, then everybody appointed shall be sworn in within 30 days. If you don't get sworn in, the appointing authority can boot you out. Then once all that individual member crap stuff is done, you're saying the body shall meet.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, just trying to keep the membership is in one section, and then what the body shall do once the membership is
Right.
completed.
Yes, that makes sense. So altogether, it will say within 30 days, the establishment of an appointed multi-member body. The appointing authority shall appoint the members of that body. All individuals appointed to a position or multi-member body shall be sworn in within 30 days of the date of their appointment. Anyone not sworn in within 30 days of appointment may have their appointment vacated by the appointing authority. The body.
Members of the body.
Well, now it just says, the body shall meet, organize, and elect officers within 30 days.
Sounds cool to me.
Within 30 days of the appointment of the, now that,
The body shall meet, organize, elect officers within 30 days of that date. Yeah. And then the reappointment concept is there.
yep.
Look up, John.
Did I'll ask you guys to turn off the lights in the hall, if you guys would turn off the lights when you're done.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know if he's leaving, but he said the doors are all locked, so you can't get back in. So don't go out.
yeah, okay,
Thanks.
thanks. So. Good with 11 and 12 here, yes. And then,
Yeah, I would just, if you want to format the sections the same way as the others with the title kind of up above the section and then leading into the sections.
So they are. Oh, all right, so.
We can clean that up. If we want to.
Yeah, because they were originally the 11 and 12 were about the meetings. So everybody gets appointed and comes to the meeting and
yeah, I think
elect
maybe,
somebody, and then the reorganization meetings are discussed in the other one. Do you want to put meetings in twice?
I think it's probably perhaps more descriptive if the heading above it where it now says meetings, it maybe should be more referencing multiple member bodies.
Just call them.
Well, I think so. Greg had it as establishment and appointment, but yeah, anything along those.
All right.
So that's what I'm talking about.
All right, so I just,
Those titles kind of have those sit up above, and then it can be, section 11, just dive right into the text, within 30 days.
all right, so, all right, I see what you mean.
That's all I was talking
Yeah,
about.
all right, so I'll read out the meetings, because we're getting rid of that. And we'll take and cut that out of there. Oops, how am I gonna do that? This ought to be interesting. We'll see. Stay. And move that over to the middle. Oh, very nice. There, over here. There. Paste. That middle of the page. And I did the same thing with the administrative code appendix.
So I think we need to reference the charter in there somewhere.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. One might wonder whether we need to say that in the bylaws, since the charter says specifically. The administrative code shall be printed as an appendix to the bylaws.
So, and I haven't gone over this saying,
Yeah.
why? To me, it's silly to have that. It seems kind of like it should appear in one or the other, but not both. So like, if you wanted to change, if you're changing the administrative code, that's part of the charter.
Well, it's not part of the charter, it's required by the charter.
Right, but that's what I mean. So in the administrative code isn't really spelled out. And I think the idea of that was to be is you have this town government in its current composition. And I'd say the fire chief or police chief. The treasurer collector position. The accountant and stuff like that. And if you're gonna change that, that's the administrative code. So somewhere that should have appeared Otherwise, what's the use of this? And where does it best belong?
You know, going back to the charter. It's, the organization of the town into operating agencies, that's basically setting up the departments in town.
Yeah,
And it gives us two options. One is we can enact bylaws to organize and establish the various departments.
Mhm.
And the other option is the town administrator can prepare an administrative code, which does the same thing.
yeah,
And then it's, and that's supposed to be submitted to town meeting for an up or down vote.
after he's consulted with the selectmen, and then they've had public hearings on it.
So we've done that exactly once in the history of this charter.
Jackie, I don't know if Evan ever has, but yeah, granted, Evan hasn't been here, all that long, but if I'm representing the office of the town administrator, I'm hanging my hat on the may. The town administrator may, after consulting with the select board, from time to time, prepare and submit. It never even says it ever had to be done once.
See, because there really isn't an administrative organization of the town spelled out anyplace. As in, there shall be a Department of Public, a highway, so it's like, yes, we created a Department of Public Works out of these other departments.
And that we did through the mechanism of an administrative code approved by town meeting.
Right.
Subsequent to that, and that administrative code covered the Department of Works, but not the other departments in town. And in principle, the way I look at the charter, and this may or may not be technically 100% accurate, is that the organization of the town into various operating agencies, the finance department, the town clerk.
Yeah.
Used to be completely separate, but that's changing. But, the health department, all of the departments, that all should be described by either bylaws or an administrative code. They're not.
Right, and that's
One of these things that we've never, we're supposed to do what we never actually did.
that was my conundrum about this is, do you just make it easy to change the bylaws by virtue of the changes to the administrative code, which in my mind, if it's supposed to be the organization of the town government, has never really existed, other than the fact that they're just before what was done with the public works was done. You had a highway department, you had a fire department, you had a police department. So that all needed to be spelled out someplace, I guess, as the administrative code. The town shall have this, and this, and this. So one of the first changes would have been the treasurer collector job got combined almost. Whether, when they filed the charter, they did that instead of doing it under the charter. So now you just have that one treasurer collector department. We had the accounting department, the fire department, the health department, the planning department, all of that stuff is out there. And it exists in the charter as on paper, but it doesn't really say what it is in the context of an administrative code.
I don't think the charter even mentions the planning department.
Well, the
There
planning board,
was no planning department back in the day.
well, planning board,
There was a planning board,
yeah,
but not a planning department. We hired a town planner we now have a somewhat a more substantial planning and conservation department.
Oh, yeah.
So, we've modified the organization of town, any number of times.
Yeah.
Since the charter was created. The only time we did the administrative code thing was to create the Department of Public Works. And per the charter, the administrative code is not technically part of the bylaws, it's just.
Just an informational
Just supposed to
thing.
be put out there as an appendix.
Right, and that's, so the reason why I was reading it the way the select board and the administrator have to kind of agree on a change to the existing structure. They have a public hearing, it goes into a warrant article, the town approves of this change or doesn't approve. If it doesn't act within 30 days of the town meeting, then it's approved anyways. So either they disapprove of it or they approve of it in one way or the other. And then once that approval or disapproval has occurred, it automatically changes the bylaw, and you don't have to turn around and put another bylaw change in there.
Yeah, well, you don't.
Right at the town meeting to change.
Yeah.
How are you gonna change that?
Very good.
You've got to show some way to actually change that appendix.
Except the appendix is not part of the bylaw, so it's not a bylaw change.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a change of the appendix to the bylaws.
but the charter spells out how to do that, and you have to go to town meeting. If and when you ever, if and when the town administrator decides that he may, from time to time, go through this.
Well, they have changed it. We've appointed the deputy police chief. We have Mary Laurier, who has no real spot in the world. And I guess that's what's happened with the assistant administrator position, where it's kind of come and gone many times over the last several years.
Yeah, and
I just don't know that,
but while the administrative code is intended to be published as an appendix to the bylaw, so it's part of the bylaw document, but it's not part of the bylaw. So the bylaws deal with the bylaws. And the bylaws don't have to say boo about anything you publish along with the bylaw document.
Yeah, and that's, if the converse of that is true, that we've talked about, is that the way the charter is presented now isn't really right, because you shouldn't have the report and all that
Yes.
crap as part of the charter.
Yes,
So
I've had some conversations even about changing the charter document so that it's easier to understand what is and is not the charter in that document. That's something that, Evan recognizes the need to work on that too. I mean, there are other things that might be worth including in the bylaw document, although not part of the bylaws. A number of towns include in their bylaw document a list of all the legislative acts that have been accepted by the town over the years. The town clerk has-
Index to good government is what I would call that.
Yeah, so, so we can, in some other context, we can think about what ought to be published along with the bylaws, but focusing on what the bylaws actually need to say, they probably don't need to say anything about things that might be published alongside the bylaws in some manner.
So being, we had talked about getting this a little more definitive someplace, than it's kind of a toss up in the air now. Of exactly how any of this stuff is changed or not changed.
Yeah, I think Evan still has to, Evan and the select board still, I think, need to come to grips with what the charter says about the administrative code and then how that's adopted.
Yeah. What it actually is. So so should I leave this in, take it out?
I'd be inclined to take it out.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the charter probably says all that needs to be said about the administrative code and its connection to the bylaws.
Oops, at the beginning of how. Maybe And going back up to the top. So we're just gonna park this one. In essence, because. We have those, you know, what's the scoop on the contract concept there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do with that Gatsby.
Yeah.
Window. Sound good?
Yep, so we've got a question for Evans and questions for town council. And, yeah, and hopefully we can get some of that resolved for the next meeting. And next thing I have on my list, I don't have any other bylaw articles that I have notes on that we need to talk about. But I had the, questions about colorblindness. Certainly.
Yeah.
And I had seen that this goes back to the minutes of the Disability Accessibility Advisory Commission's May meeting where someone asked about, is our green highlighted could be a problem for the colorblind? So I did a little bit of, investigation into that. So I've come out, what I circulated for this meeting was a memo that I proposed to send to the Accessibility Advisory Committee explaining what I found on behalf of the Committee for Colorblindness. I was actually somewhat surprised to see that at least the shades of red and green we use show up as quite distinct shades even to the colorblind person, so that helps. And the only thing I thought of, thinking beyond just the shades of highlighting is the fact that we've used strike through for deleted text, but we haven't otherwise distinguished the added text. So I thought maybe it would be an improvement to italicize the added text so that even if for some reason you can't see the shading or you don't remember which shade is which, because
Because I don't recall seeing any italicized text.
right, I thought about bold, underline, and italics. And we use bold in the text, we use underline occasionally, but we don't use italics. Except in the headers and footers, we use italics, that doesn't count.
Yeah,
So I thought italics would probably be helpful.
go to the cross out in italics instead of red and green. On a forward going basis for whatever we do, that's fine.
Yep, so if.
Nice bit of research.
I think the Accessibility Commission meets next week, so if we're okay with this, I will.
Yeah, send them on to them,
Forward
say,
that
hey,
to
you
them,
know,
ask them for their
if you
feedback.
guys are cool with this, based on this research, what do you think?
Yep. I thought to run that by us before I send it out. But yeah, that was interesting. And then the last thing I have on my list goes back to the 21D. And this is a draft of a memo I proposed to send to Evan and the chief of police and probably others. Evan might have a better sense than I do about who all ought to review this. But
A quick answer from my perspective would be anybody that shows up in the enforcing person.
Right.
Column.
yeah,
Yeah, because they're all gonna be affected by this in one way, shape, or form.
so. So there are some gaps here. I filled in all the enforcing officers and penalties for the bylaws that I've been working with. I didn't fill anything in for earth removal, unregistered motor vehicles, house numbering, or the lakes. But in preparation for a discussion here, I went back and looked at those 4 bylaws. Earth removal, they're currently, I looked to who the bylaws currently identify as enforcing persons and what fines and penalties they currently say. So earth removal, and what I want to do is fill these in
Yeah,
for review, you know, even if it's not what we necessarily. And obviously, it's all subject to change, but for earth removal, we had, there is a provision for notifying the offender of the violation. And if the offender persists, a fine of up to $50. And then if they keep at it, up to 100, if they keep at it, up to 200. So just as a first suggestion for non-criminal disposition, call it a warning for the first offense, a $50 penalty for the second offense, 100 for the third, and 200 for all subsequent offenses. And the earth removal bylaw, the select board is the one that imposes the penalties. So my first guess at an enforcing person might be the town administrator or designee.
yeah. You know, is that fine per day?
I don't think those were per day. I don't remember off the top of my head.
You know, it was something like that, so I'm trying to think of the flip side. Okay, so what are you actually trying to come up with that? Keep somebody from digging up a small pile of dirt that may or may not fall under that, or somebody that started a commercial earth removal operation and is gonna go hell bent for leather and scrape everything out that they can and then run away
Yeah.
and pay $100 fine. You know, with using a non-criminal disposition as a potential is nice, but we should not ever be precluding anybody from pursuing something in Superior.
No, we've always, that's one thing that's, you know, consistent and
Yeah.
everything every change I've made for non-criminal disposition, it's always, you may use non-criminal disposition.
Mhm.
There's a couple of places where we said, and I don't remember which bylaws they were, shall use non-criminal disposition. And the paper that the chief handed off and passed on to me about non-criminal disposition was pointed that out, that if you say shall use non-criminal disposition, if they just keep ignoring you, you're stuck. So it's
Yeah,
always the option.
Yeah, so as long as it's a may use it, then, yeah, the fine structure is fine. No pun intended.
Yeah, so that's, so I'll put those in for earth removal. For unregistered vehicles, they have a 10 days after a written notice, they hit you with a $20 a day fine. And that seems like it's suitable for non-criminal disposition. I just go with that.
Yeah. That,
The notice would come from the select board, so is that, you're thinking for the.
Yeah, so
that would be, yeah.
So here again, the select board, so the town administrator or designee, you know, and some people say you should probably include police officers as enforcing persons always.
Well,
I'm not, I get the impression from the chief that he's not particularly interested in being an enforcement officer for all sorts of other bylaws.
yeah,
So I've not proposed that as a.
yeah, it's. The building department may have gotten involved in some of that in the past, or perhaps presently, because I get the feeling I remember some people making some snide remarks about people telling you can't park that truck here or that, you know, so I don't know how true that was.
Yeah, so I think if we suggest for unregistered vehicles that the town administrator or designee will be the enforcing person. We'll see.
They get complaints there.
Yeah, but we'll see. Evan may have some alternative suggestions. I think one thing, the way I wrote this memo, I will be editing it slightly to say specifically, we want your opinion on our choice, our suggested enforcing people and our suggested fines.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't say anything, forever hold your peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had sent over the initial, published draft of, 15, because there aren't any other edits, so I can add that in and recirculate that for the next meeting.
Sounds good. Article 18, house numbering. It currently has a $5 a day fine. I'd leave it at,
Yeah.
I do the same for non-criminal.
Yeah, and that's a notice from the town clerk's office. If I recall,
Yeah.
you gotta send notice to the town clerk, say the house isn't numbered, so the town clerk can send a letter out to the person at the place.
And section 5 of Article 18 basically has the building inspector, the fire chief, and the fire chief's designee as people to enforce it.
Right.
And this, again, they may have some different suggestions, but I kind of looked at these and went with whoever the bylaw currently identifies
Yes,
as the people charged with enforcement.
by and large, those guys are gonna see a lot more of the houses to get them numbered than anyone else will. For any kind of building permit at anybody's house, and for any kind of smoke detector stuff.
Yeah.
You go out there, you've gotta put this on your smoke detector permit now, add the checkoff box for the house number, the house number there.
So we'll propose that and see what they say.
Mhm.
And the last one that I didn't already know about, I have anything in my table here for was Lake Ripple and Silver Lake. There, Greg has combined the two into one bylaw article. Makes perfect sense, all of us. And it has a $50 fine for a violation, which again seems reasonable for a 21D fine. I think it largely it was less clear to me who the enforcing people were intended to be there, but I think police were mentioned. And it occurs to me that in that case, police probably is appropriate, possibly someone from conservation or recreation, or maybe even fire. Fire, because open burning requires approval of fire. But how many of those should be, and conservation and recreation, conservation basically is kind of in charge of the lakes.
Yeah,
And recreation is involved in Silver Lake, but I'm not quite sure.
well, where is the call gonna go for a violation of any of those?
Most likely the police.
Yeah,
So although I thought it possibly that conservation, recreation, and fire could be involved, my instinct is to just give it to the police. The chief may have other ideas.
well, by and large, his guys are gonna go down there anyways and be involved in getting anybody out of those situations or dealing with people that are in those situations.
Most likely.
Yeah. So for them to write up a little piece of paper after they identify anybody that they interact with is gonna be the same thing as,
So I will, at least for the purposes of getting feedback from the various staff, we'll go with the police we will be happy to take suggestions, recommendations for, well, actually, we think this person should be the enforcing person. Or actually, we don't like these graduated scale fines. We think just one flat fine would work better for us. I'll skin off my back. We'll do whatever makes the most sense to the people who are gonna be involved in this.
yep.
Good with that? Anybody else have anything on bylaw article work? We're getting close to being,
Just shoot a note around when you hear back from their meeting next week so that I don't do green and red when we should be doing strikeout and italicized.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, my thinking is we'll keep going with the red and green.
Yeah,
Because for most of us, red and green,
Yeah.
work very well. It's, you know,
so,
if you can't, if you don't see red and green as red and green, the strikeout and the italics are more readable.
so, we just changed our green to italics.
Yeah, that's what I did in the two,
Yeah,
the Article 1 and the Article 12 drafts.
yeah, so that takes care of it all anyways.
Yeah. So
I did follow up with Candy, did I say I followed up with Candy about whether the fee schedule needs to
Fee
appear and why the numbers are off kilter, and I have not heard back from her.
So we'll leave them alone for the time being.
Yeah, did you play with that table, bud?
Yes. Yes. if you-
Congratulations.
Yeah, if you look at what's up on the website for the committee.
Looks better.
Yeah, the table, I got the table to look the way it did before.
Excellent.
It didn't take a whole lot of work as it turned out.
And speaking of the website, Dave, I don't think the updates from the last meeting.
No, they didn't make it.
Okay. So I didn't know if that was on us or William or.
I dropped the ball on that.
Okay, yeah.
The 4th of July weekend, the holiday week, that kind of got in the way.
Yeah.
Oh dear. My Zoom just crapped out on me.
Well, that's a good time to end.
Zoom is still running, it's just not that. Let's see.
Zoom or your camera? The bylaw study committee says it's still there.
That's that.
It's only on
Oh,
my
yeah.
computer that I lost it. Let me see if I can get my computer back on it. Dun, 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 dun. Where did I put that? Anyway, I'm waiting for my computer to reconnect. Next agenda item we have is to begin planning for town meeting. You know, it's getting to that point where we have to start thinking about that. Talking with Evan, most likely the warrant will close probably September 19th. So obviously we'll have to have something ready to get on the warrant by then. That's sort of the last date we can count on. We probably don't need to be on any earlier. We talked a little bit about the organizing the warrant. Evan suggested maybe warrant articles 1 through 41 can be bylaw articles 1 through 41. 3 of our bylaw articles we haven't touched. We've not proposed any changes, but just to make it easy for people to follow.
Yeah.
We can have warrant articles 1 through 41, bylaw article 1 through 41. And we talked a little bit, I talked speculating whether it would be worthwhile doing a consent motion on some collection of bylaw articles, but you know, that could go.
Well, only time will tell when our final product is there.
Yeah, and unless we're really confident that there's a substantial number of bylaw articles that are virtually certain to get no objection, we'll just, we can just take them one by one.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of assume that that's what we'll do.
I mean, unless Evan or council, Frank, or the committee, just one person, have strong opposition, I would still much prefer to propose the consent motion idea. It's not you know, we talked about how none of us, I think, wanna bundle everything together in one warrant article so that the whole thing could get thrown out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Clearly, that's a non-starter.
yeah, but I think, you know, the consent motion idea, if anybody does have something that they wanna talk about, it's easy enough, and we've done the process enough time, people should be familiar enough with the process to call it out and hold it off to the side. I just don't wanna spend, you know, 4 hours at the meeting, you know, going through 41 articles, just even having to call them all up separately and,
Yeah, no, yeah, that's kind of my, yeah. I wouldn't rule out using a consent motion. To get kind of, you know, as we get closer to the time, we may have a sense that there's a sufficient number of bylaw articles that are pretty clearly non-controversial that it would be helpful to bundle in consent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. I certainly agree that one motion to do everything is not gonna work.
I mean, I think, I don't wanna give the impression of people at town meeting either, that we're just trying to ram these things all through. I just don't know that there's, yeah.
That just kind of explaining, hey, you know, in our deliberations, we looked at this, there's 41 articles. We're giving you a group of them that seem pretty clear cut to us in this consent motion. You know, we've explained them all. And we're doing 14 of them on a consent motion. What do you think? And if somebody doesn't like one, then they toss it out and whatever.
Yep, and there's something that you always have to remember that when we do a consent motion, we can always pull things out of it.